Good evening, everybody. This is Monica Guzman coming to you live once again during the week on what I am calling leading up to Independence Day 2021. So tonight's topic is the Bill of Rights itself. Yesterday, I covered some of the events that led up to the formulation of the rights and how and why we ended up with them in the Constitution. And so tonight, I actually want to just talk about the Bill of Rights themselves, go into more detail. Because again, Amendment number 3, the no soldiers, it sounds so like passe, but with the way things are going, we don't know if that's something that we're going to have to say, Biden administration, you can't do that. I mean, we all saw videos and pictures of, was it the National Guard that was stationed at the Capitol before January 6th, during January 6th, and a few days after January 6th. I mean, we have no idea if we're going to end up being told that we have to quarter the military, which has been purged of Americans, and who knows what's going to be left in the military in a year, because a lot of other people now are calling for military members to just quit. Obviously, there are ramifications for men who abandon the military. You're not allowed to do that. I don't know if you just walk out, if that constitutes going AWOL. I personally don't know the ins and outs of leaving the military on your own accord without an official discharge. But if those of you that can get out, right? A lot more people on Twitter are calling for men to just get out. Some San Diego troop, the Navy, right? Went on some sort of homosexual pride walk, waving the flag, and some of the people pictured in that picture seem to enjoy it. And so that's one indication of what the military is going to be left with once Americans just say, I'm done. But I'm not worried about the American military waging war on American citizens, because the military will be purged of Americans at that point. And what I'm hoping you guys will do is you will use your skills, your brawn, your intelligence to defend your household and neighborhood the way Americans protected their neighborhoods when the riots, thanks to LeBron James, broke out last year. Again, we saw those videos on main streets, and we saw Americans parked with their trucks and their flags in blocking cul-de-sacs into their areas. That's the kind of thing I'm hoping that people getting purged from the military will consider doing, is just defending your home, your household, your neighborhood on a local level. That's really the best thing we can do, is take everything local, keep it local. Let's trickle up as opposed to this trickle down nonsense. I'm not sure who came up with it, but it's obviously not working. Now, before I get into the Bill of Rights, so my shtick is the intersection of American baseball history and American baseball, and I've narrowed down my focus to about the mid 1800s through the end of the Babe Ruth era. So, approaching the end of the 1930s. So right before the 1940s kick in. And So every so often, I have to dig further back. So 1829 is the first report of American baseball being played on American soil. Dr. Wendell attended Harvard in 1829, and according to claims that he made that were written in books and historical documents and books, he stated that his peers and him played a game similar to what became American baseball. So every so often, I have to go outside of my my year brackets. And then obviously I have to bring in examples of what's happening in MLB today for context, comparison and contrasts, and evidence and stuff like that. So right now, something that's occurring in MLB is uh, an incident that occurred twice with Trevor Bauer and a woman. I don't know if she's been named. I don't know if she's been identified. None of the stuff that I've skimmed over it. I've read some screenshots. I've read comments from people, and so whatever the investigation from MLB finds and whatever the investigation from the Pasadena PD finds, and I believe San Diego PD is involved also, whatever they find, the whole thing is extremely disturbing. And I am going to guarantee you that women who are already anti-patriarchy, anti-men, they're not homosexual women. They are women who have sexual relations with men. They're not homosexual women, but there are women out there right now, groups of women who are staunchly anti-patriarchy, anti-men, anti-traditional women's roles. And some of them live in fear of men, like sincere fear of men. I guarantee you that this Trevor Bauer incident is going to push those women even further to rally around themselves against men. I promise you, because I've already had several conversations with women before this Trevor Bauer thing came to light, and they were already, I don't know if it's anger or it's this just they really don't like men, and they are perfectly happy to take care of themselves. And this is going to kick it even further. So look, I get my hair done. I get my eyelashes done. I get my eyebrows done. And the places that I go to, I've realized are all women. They're run by women. Men do not work there. There are other places that I go to get other stuff done. It's all women. And there are no men working there, and they have no male clients. These are considered safe spaces for women. And I see these types of locations increasing in numbers. And we can't get to a point where women are running the show. I don't believe that that's going to be healthy for society. I staunchly still believe that the healthiest society we can have is with men at the helm, then followed by women and then children. The hierarchy, it has to be your alpha men, women, and then children. That is the healthiest society. That is the hierarchy that helped the United States grow. That's the hierarchy that helped the United States get through 300 years of no electricity, no internet, no electronic devices, no cars, no telephones. Americans figured it out. For 300 years, it's in the 1900s when stuff just went sideways, and the 1960s, a non-American culture that represents 1% of the population figured out how to get women to fear men. There is an authentic fear among several women out there of men. They fear men. And I'm going to be honest with you right now. I never, ever want to meet anybody associated with MLB. I never want to meet anybody associated with MLB. The stuff that I'm working on is going to be independent of MLB, and I don't want anybody from MLB involved in it. You guys are a bunch of degenerates that allowed a Trevor Bauer to occur. I will never forget when I was watching the Baseball Hating Network before the All-Star break. I believe it's 3 years ago at this point. They had Felipe Vasquez on, a Venezuelan, on the show, and they were pumping him up. They were all about Felipe Vasquez from Venezuela. I believe it was 2 weeks later we found out about the porn charges, the child porn charges against him. And there is a list of things that keep trickling down the pipes. I've realized that the New York Yankees, under the Steinbrenners and especially under Brian Cashman, what they do is they purposely acquire steroid users, domestic abusers, because they're riding the coattails of the championship New York Yankees that came before them, that started with Babe Ruth, all the way to the point where the Steinbrenner family purchased the Yankees. They're riding all those championships, all that history, all that glory. And what they do is they acquire these degenerates, and because they put them in a Yankee uniform, somehow they're trying to rehabilitate steroid users, domestic abusers, and so that the American population will accept them. It's like, hey, you know what? So what if this guy threatened his girlfriend by shooting a gun several times in the air? He's a Yankee. You should like him anyway. Or the other guy that slapped his then girlfriend in front of his teammates at a charity event. Hey, don't even worry about it, dude. He wears a Yankee uniform. You're supposed to like him. And I realized that Andrew Friedman is doing the same thing under the banner of the Los Angeles Dodgers. We love our LA Dodgers so much that Friedman takes on these degenerates because he puts them in a Los Angeles Dodgers uniform. Yesterday was the anniversary of, if you have a sombrero, throw it up in the sky. So a lot of us, we remember, okay, personally, I do not remember watching Fernando Valenzuela pitch. I was too young in the 80s to remember like those exact moments. Even Kirk Gibson is I was still a little bit too young for that. But I remember, again, I grew up in a household where we watched the Dodgers, and I watched the Dodgers. I don't have vivid memories of the Dodgers in the 80s, but I know that we we were hardcore. We loved our Dodgers. And so you've got your Andrew Friedman riding the coattails of the Dodgers from the 80s, and he takes on these degenerates, puts them in the uniform because somehow you're supposed to forget that these guys have awful histories and are obviously continuing. They're who they are is who they are, right? Trevor Bauer, this is who he is. But put him in an LA Dodger uniform. Joe Kelly's another one. Somehow there has been a purge of Dodger fans, and the vacuum has been filled with Friedman Dodger fans. So like those of you who worship at the altar of Andrew Friedman, you're the pot smokers, you're the drinkers, you're the alcoholics, you are the get in a fight in the bleachers, get in a fight in the expensive seats, right? You are the bottom of the barrel at this point, and it shows. And so, but you don't care, right? You don't care that Trevor Bauer is an absolute horrifying person. Again, regardless of the way this case goes, whether it rules in favor of Bauer or against Bauer, the fact that he participated in this stuff is horrifying. I mean, I watched a lot of TV growing up. I still watch a lot of stuff that comes from TV. I watch Murphy's American Horror Story, and it is it's dark, and it's dark. And the thing is, they do such a good job putting intelligence behind it. Like, I'm gonna admit, my favorite one is the one with the hotel, because it's so intelligent. It's horror, because that season isn't the worst one, but they're dark. They're extremely dark. And so I watched The Fall. The Fall is, I mean, this Trevor Bauer stuff is basically out of The Fall. Like it's I'm telling you, women out there are scared. There are a lot of women out there who fear men. In The Fall, Gillian Anderson has a line where there's some they interview men and women, and the thing that men fear the most about women is that we're going to laugh at them. And the women in this fictional character show say that the thing they fear most about men is that men are going to kill them. There is an authentic fear out there among women of men. I'm not joking. Like, there are places where women get services. Men don't work there, and men are not clients there. And women are creating what they deem safe spaces against men. And so again, however this thing turns out, it is just so sick. But again, this is the direction that MLB has been heading in for several years. And it started with the steroid stuff. The fact that there's people out there still celebrating Barry Bonds tells you who they are, because Trevor Bauer defends Barry Bonds. Trevor Bauer defends Barry Bonds using steroids. Trevor Bauer defends Barry Bonds, the steroid using cheater. And now we find out something about Trevor Bauer's character, so it makes sense that a cheater and a sexual degenerate would stick together. I mean, I don't know what Barry Bonds thinks of Trevor Bauer, but Trevor Bauer defends Barry Bonds. This is a trend. This is common in MLB now. I mean, we're just finding out stuff about them. We don't know what else is happening out there, right? Like, I reserve the right to like I've narrowed down my favorite baseball players to 3. Mad Bum, Zach Greinke, DJ LeMahieu. Those are my favorite baseball players. I I hope DJ LeMahieu does his thing on the field so I can make a Hall of Fame case for him. Um, and maybe if he doesn't get another batting title, maybe I'll still try to make a Hall of Fame case for him anyway. But all 3 of these guys are married. They all have children. Okay, I don't know if Mad Bum has children, but they're married. They seem like they're okay, but I reserve the right to change my opinion if somebody uncovers something about them. And I really hope that these are the 3 of like the clean ones that are roaming around MLB. So I want to, again, MLB, Pasadena PD, San Diego PD are going to invest this Trevor Bauer stuff, and they're going to reach their conclusion. No matter how it goes, either for Trevor Bauer or against Trevor Bauer, for me, this incident, there's something that I'm going to discuss, not tonight, but it's going to be part of my future streams, not dropping Trevor Bauer's name necessarily. It's the trend in MLB. So, for example, I've watched a couple of episodes of Brockmire, and I like Hank Azaria. I think he is a funny guy. That sucks. They kicked him off The Simpsons. He's funny. He is a natural comedic. I can't remember right now if I've seen other stuff with him besides Brockmire, but I do know that when I've watched videos of interviews of him and stuff, he's funny and he's got a personality. Now, in Brockmire, he's a total degenerate, and the show is also totally degeneracy. And I understand that this is something that came out of the Funny or Die stuff, and I believe that's mired in degeneracy too. But did Joe Buck produce Brockmire? I know a lot. I know he makes several appearances, and then there's Tarpine George Brett in it, and several other baseball hating network guys make appearances in it. So, given this Trevor Bauer stuff, given the trend in MLB with degeneracy and all the stuff that's happening in the league, makes me question, is Joe Buck a degenerate too? Like, is Joe Buck a degenerate, or does Joe Buck want to be a degenerate? And I already know he's a Marxist. I heard your Colin Cowherd podcast thing surrounded around gambling. And Cowherd asked Buck about the comment about the flyover during an NFL game last season. And Joe Buck basically said that there's so many people out there that are basically what I believe he was trying to say is out there who hate America right now and who feel victimized by. Obviously, he's talking about the African population. The African population that feels victimized on this soil, even though you don't have to be here, you have a country of origin you can go back to. But the reality is the African population makes up 12% of the population residing on American soil. So even if it's 12% who feels victimized, that's still not a lot of people. If he's saying that people who watch the NFL, I'm going to admit that I don't know the demographic breakdown of NFL viewers, but we know that the NFL is 60% African. So if he's saying that a lot of people who put on NFL uniforms feel victimized by America, then okay. But NFL players aren't watching the games. And I'm going to assume that the American population still provides a larger viewership than the African population for the NFL. So that's why I call Joe Buck a Marxist. For him to worry about a tiny portion of the population and make an anti-USA statement, it's Marxism. And Steve Bannon did this, and I think a couple other people are starting to do this. It's not cultural Marxism, it's Marxism, period. And right now, it's critical theory, which was brought to American soil by the Frankfurt School when they ran away from Hitler, and they set up shop at Columbia University. So I'm not trying to pick on Joe Buck. But I have questions now. Like, dude, you're remarried and you have babies. Like, and whatever, it doesn't even matter what the answer is. It's just an observation on my part. I think Joe Buck is a great announcer, called whatever you guys call him, broadcaster, play-by-play guy. But I don't ever want to meet Joe Buck. I don't ever want to meet anybody associated with MLB that's like really in deep. I just never want to meet any of you. So again, however this Trevor Bauer thing turns out, I have bigger questions. Namely, where is his agent? And I'm not picking on her per se either, but my concern is she's a feminist who encourages other women to abandon their traditional role in favor of the workplace. And this is very common. And I'm not prepared to give my presentation tonight, but I want to start putting this stuff out there, planting seeds, I guess. So it's a trend. It's a trend. Women who defend, again, Trevor Bauer's agent also defends steroid cheater Barry Bonds. And she's a feminist, and she encourages young girls to seek the workplace as a fulfilling their traditional roles and their biological duty of becoming a wife and having children. And so how does this work now for young ladies out there who look up to Trevor Bauer's agent? If now you know what Trevor Bauer does to women, even if they want it, a real man, an alpha, a real baseball player would have shut down this woman who allegedly wanted him to beat her up. A real man would have said, dude, you're crazy. Block her on Instagram. I mean, I cannot imagine that Babe Ruth did this stuff to the hordes of women that worshipped him. I cannot imagine that. I mean, Babe Ruth was the most into women of all of the other ones because, let's see, Christy Mathewson was super Christian. I don't think he was messing around on his wife. Walter Johnson, I don't believe, messed around on his wife. Ty Cobb got divorced. I don't think he messed around that way. A.G. Spalding, I believe, was into his wife. Cap Anson was into his wife. Cap Anson did not mess around on his wife. Who else? Honus Wagner, I'm not sure about his marital stuff. But he seemed a rough and tumble guy. Was he messing around with city girls? I don't know. So I covered Cy Young, loved his wife. Cy Young was not into city girls. He was all about his wife, and she passed away before he did. And the years that came after her death, he spent them hanging out with little leaguers and making speeches. And he had some really, really good friends that looked after him until he passed away. So it's just so you've got this feminist who encourages young women to abandon their traditional roles and to enter the workplace where they're going to be victimized because Theo Epstein mentored Jared Porter. And if you don't know what Jared Porter did, do a search on Twitter. You'll find the information there. So it's a trend right now. Your Theo Epsteins, your Andrew Friedmans, your Brian Cashmans are bringing in degenerates into MLB. Domestic abusers, steroid users, and you Americans are expected to worship at the altar of degenerates. Because that's what they're recruiting. That's what non-Americans are recruiting into MLB. And so women are going to get victimized in MLB because the culture of MLB is the one being built by Robert Manfred, Theo Epstein, Bud Selig, whatever Bud Selig left. And so I'm really curious and I'm looking forward to her finally responding. It seems like she's gone dark on Twitter, and I don't blame her because her and Trevor Bauer have been friends. How do we know that this isn't stuff that he did to her too, and she covered it up? So she's got some answering to do, put out a statement, say something. I fully expect some of these other women, like your Molly Knights, to hold her feet to the fire. Otherwise, again, you're just going to Lena Dunham this situation. So if you are tuned into this video to listen to me talk about the Bill of Rights, I wasn't sure if I wanted to address this MLB stuff, but my shtick, again, is the intersection of American baseball history and American history, focused on the mid-1800s through about the beginning of the 1940s. And I just felt like I wanted to say something about the Trevor Bauer situation because it's a trend. It's a trend, what's happening. And just some other stuff that I've discovered just in the last week about what women are doing. I just felt like I needed to say something and bring it up. So that's my rant on that. And I'm not going to address it again. Even if Trevor Bauer's agent puts out her statement, and then whatever MLB, Pasadena PD and San Diego PD, I'm not going to address this stuff in the near future again, because what I'm doing is I'm just adding it to everything else for future streams. So let me now go ahead and go into my original topic, the theme for this week, Independence Day 2021, which is an important holiday and a great opportunity to remind Americans where you come from, your legacy, your ancestors, the awesome things that they accomplished. And just, I mean, even if you're not like somehow a blood relative of James Madison, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, Ben Franklin, there's still a lot of pride that can be taken into the things that they accomplished, and they came from Great Britain for the most part. Apologize. Um, and so, you know, I don't know how many hard feelings there are over in Great Britain over what their cousins did to them, but like Cap Anson, right? Cap Anson's family has a legacy in England. He had an ancestor who was a member of the original Navy. And then there were barristers, and then obviously his dad was like explorer, pioneer, and then Cap Anson himself, who did his thing in Iowa. You know, to me, the real Field of Dreams is the one that Cap Anson built in Iowa. It would be so awesome to be able to visit that site. Maybe that's something I'll do in the near future. And just kind of, I guess we can't call it Field of Dreams for copyright reasons, but we can definitely finagle something to get Cap Anson his due. And so in Cap Anson's family, there was a rift. One brother sided with Great Britain, and then the other brother sided with the colonists. And so by the time his dad's generation rolled around, the family made amends. And the same way that the North and the South made amends. You know, it was Grant, when the Civil War ended, oh, I can't remember the quote, but he said something to the effect of, make peace with your Southern brothers, right? I understand that some Africans feel like your Whoopi Goldbergs, feel like they always needed to keep their bags packed because they never felt like Americans 100%. And I understand that. You know, in my case, I call myself a ni de aquí, ni de allá, because I went to college with real Mexicans, and I went to college with real Americans. That was my first experience being outside of the first generation Mexican, right? And I got along just fine. People didn't care, but they noticed, like, you know, at that time, I went to college with Americans from Minnesota. I went to college with Americans from the South. I went to college with Americans from New England. And over there at that time, the Mexican population wasn't what it is today. And for me, in my case, where I spoke English with the California accent, for them, I was a puzzle, right? I mean, they accepted me. We all got along. It was cool, but it was, I was an outlier. And the Mexicans, the real Mexicans, same thing. It's like they knew I was Mexican by blood, but I grew up in the United States, and it was what it was. And so I don't feel like I need to keep my bags packed. I love this country. I love being an American citizen. I celebrate it. And I know that it's in my best interest for this country to remain healthy and strong. It's the only beacon of freedom in this world that we have, and we have to keep it alive. And so I'll never relate to Whoopi Goldberg, Oprah, or Will Smith. I don't understand this, not celebrating being American. The Constitution, there's amendments in there that granted you American citizenship. I mean, you're pretty lucky. Like, but okay, whatever, right? That's how they feel, and they have a right to feel that way. Okay. So I went on another tangent. So again, I'm sorry if I offend anybody by calling this my history Bible. It could be sacrilegious to say something like that. But once again, the book that I'm using is this, the 9th edition of the American Pageant. This is the textbook that's used in advanced placement courses. I don't know what edition they're on by now, but it's pretty, I don't know, probably like 9th edition in 1991. I think they're like in 15th, 16th, or 17th edition. But I like this one. I feel like it's the least woke of the ones out there. If I could find a earlier edition, I probably would have picked it up, but I couldn't find one. So I went with what I was comfortable with. So let me read something to get us to dive into the Bill of Rights, the 10 amendments, the first 10 amendments to the American Constitution. This passage tells you. So I talked about the events that led to the formulation of these specific 10 amendments. This passage gives you a little more background, a little bit more context. The Bill of Rights. Drawing up a Bill of Rights headed the list of tasks facing the new government. Many anti-federalists had sharply criticized the Constitution drafted at Philadelphia for its failure to provide guarantees of individual rights such as freedom of religion and trial by jury. Again, these rights, they didn't pull these rights and these notions out of the air. These are specific things that they addressed because they were specific things happening to the colonists. The colonists who rebelled against the redcoats were being thrown in jail, and they were being kept there, and they weren't given a trial. And when they were given a trial, there were more representatives for the crown than there were for the colonists. Also, freedom of religion. The reason why Great Britain citizens started to explore a new world was because they wanted the freedom to worship as they wanted, as opposed to the way the crown was forcing them to worship. The Constitution didn't come out of someone's ass. It wasn't a fever dream that someone had. It has a specific purpose that it addressed specific events, specific things that were happening to the colonists, and they wanted to prevent them from happening again and for happening in the future. Government was the enemy. As far as the colonists were concerned, a big government meant big trouble for the citizens of the country. And that is exactly why the Constitution became what it did. It's so important to understand that, because if 80% of the population learns everything, it means that they are being influenced. It explains why they kneel. It explains why they hate themselves. It explains why they're ashamed. And I believe Americans, for the most part, are people who just, right? Like, again, I spent my before I went to a higher education institute, among majority Mexicans. So I never experienced white people being mean to us. A lot of the school administrators were white, but maybe because they worked in a school district that was majority Mexican, they were kind to us. And they did their best to help us along. I can tell you that the counselor that was in charge of the college-bound students was an advocate for us. I have good memories of that man. I don't know. I mean, everybody's old now, so I don't know like how they're doing and stuff like that. But I'm not sure if I should share this or not, but that counselor was also homosexual, and I believe he was one of the ones that participated in drag. But at that time, it was nowhere near what's happening today. Was that a precursor? Like, did they always attempt for things to get like this? I don't know. But they never imposed their homosexual views. They never shared it. I only know that our college-bound counselor did drag because the student government advisor was chismeando with somebody else, and somebody found out something, and men gossiping, and I happened to be there, and I heard, but that didn't change my opinion of the counselor, because he always treated us with respect and he cared about us. And it's just all the stuff coming back. It's like, and I'm going to be making, just again, I had a very interesting college experience, and I will be sharing that with you, because some of the things I experienced in college, I honestly thought were like, would never become mainstream. And this is the beginning, a lot of the stuff that we're seeing right now. And I underestimated these people and their agenda. And it's just insane. It's insane. Okay, so let's get back to the Bill of Rights. Many states had ratified the federal constitution on the understanding that it would soon be amended to include such guarantees. Amendments to the Constitution could be proposed in either of two ways: by a new constitutional convention requested by 2/3 of the states, or by a 2/3 vote of both houses of Congress. Fearing that a new convention might unravel the narrow Federalist victory in the ratification struggle, James Madison determined to draft the amendments himself. He then guided them through Congress, where his scholarly and political skills were quickly making him the leading figure. This is 25-year-old James Madison influencing the Bill of Rights, influencing the Virginia Constitution, 25 years old. So ask yourselves, if James Madison, Ben Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, if all those guys were around right now at 29, 25 years old, would they be smoking pot and playing video games, or would they be productive in trying to fix what's happening in the country? My guess is that they would not be sitting around playing video games and smoking pot, regardless of the influence from the non-American population running the country. So I'm kind of shaming you guys, but I hope that somebody in your life sparks you to give up the pot, to give up the video games, get into a healthy diet, get outside and exercise, get you into meaningful work, not an office job. Not the white collar thing. You got to do blue collar. And Roosh published I don't know if his are articles or if it's just a post. I think his are pretty lengthy. I admit I don't read them in depth. I don't have time to give everything as much attention as I would like. But toward the end of his latest post, it's a little bit interesting, but it's focused around things he learns working a blue-collar job for a month in Alabama. And I understand some of the points I think he's trying to make, but at the same time, the healthiest America was when the labor force was made up of manufacturing, agriculture, and something else, but ranching, right? Farming, ranching, and just outdoor stuff. I mean, Thomas Jefferson didn't even like the idea of people working indoors. So Thomas Jefferson would have been opposed to manufacturing, but manufacturing helps a man earn a wage. It gives him a purpose. I mean, you don't do welding. Welding gets paid really well. We need new engineers, right? When I was in college, one of my math teachers was like Greek, but like descendant of like mathematicians Greek. And one day she gave us a lecture because we weren't doing so hot. And mind you, I went to college with extremely intelligent young adults. The Germans were just brilliant. The Bulgarians were very brilliant, and they were committed to like they had a very strong study ethic. There were Romanians there, same thing. So I went to college. I went to college with extremely intelligent people, and so my Greek math teacher that descended from like Greek mathematicians one day told us that she never wanted to drive over a bridge that we helped engineer because she knew it would collapse. So I was actually having a conversation with someone. I know this is not a light situation, but what's happened in Miami, and then they're still talking about evacuating the neighboring condominium. And so I was telling my mom, I was like, my math teacher said this would happen. Like buildings and bridges would start falling down, and because we weren't excelling at math at the level that we should have been excelling at. And this is what I'm talking about. My college experience was just insane. And I cannot believe how much stuff just coincides with what's happening right now. It's like, I don't even know, man. Like, I don't want to use the cliche of you're always supposed to be where you're supposed to be, or everything happens for a reason. It's just so cliche to say stuff like that. It sounds lame, right? But I can tell you that my life I went in a circle. Like, it's just crazy. And it freaks me out a little bit. But I don't know, man. Was this predetermined? Is this what was always supposed to happen? I don't know. If I keep bringing up Roosh right now, but some of his stuff is really relevant. He says that you're not supposed to deny God the glory of the gifts that he gave you. So when you realize that you have them, you're not supposed to deny them because you're denying glory to God. And it makes sense, and he's right. And it's a little daunting. But okay, back to the Bill of Rights. Adopted by the necessary number of states in 1791, the first 10 amendments to the Constitution, popularly known as the Bill of Rights, safeguarded some of the most precious of American principles. Among these are protections for freedom of religion, speech, and the press. Oh, yeah. I kind of haven't talked about freedom of the press, right? That's super perverted. the right to bear arms and to be tried by a jury, and the right to assemble and petition the government for redress of grievances. The Bill of Rights also prohibited cruel and unusual punishments and arbitrary government seizure of private property. To guard against the danger that enumerating such rights might lead to the conclusion that they were the only ones protected, Madison inserted the crucial Ninth Amendment. It declared that specifying certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. In a gesture of reassurance to the state's writers, he included the equally significant 10th Amendment, which reserved all rights not explicitly delegated or prohibited by the federal Constitution to the states respectively or to the people. By preserving a strong central government while specifying protections for minority and individual liberties, Madison's amendments partially swung the Federalist pendulum back in an anti-Federalist direction. The first Congress also nailed other newly sawed governmental planks into place. It created effective federal courts under the Judiciary Act of 1789. The act organized the Supreme Court with a Chief Justice and 5 associates, as well as federal district and circuit courts, and established the office of the Attorney General. New Yorker John Jay, Madison's collaborator on the Federalist paper and one of the young Republicans' most seasoned diplomats, became the first Chief Justice of the United States. So, like, great men, right? And they were young. Lifespans were shorter back then. I wonder if that's one of the reasons why we feel like we can put things off. But many women are learning that biology has not evolved with us. Wisdom teeth, we still sprout wisdom teeth. We don't need them. Most people get them extracted, yet we still keep developing them. So we have not evolved far enough that our biological hopes, the expiration clock on your biology, it's still there. Women, it's 25. Guys, it's 35. We live longer, but our biology hasn't evolved with that longer length of life. I mean, and I do feel bad for young women who buy the lies, and then you're going to get to the age of 40, you're going to be alone, childless, dried up, and well, I hope you guys figure stuff out. I hope you figure stuff out and you learn from the women that came before you that regret these decisions that they made and chose a career that doesn't love them and that victimizes them and traumatizes them. I mean, trauma is something that I want to talk about later on, but once a person has a traumatizing experience, that's it. They carry that scar with them forever. And if you are someone who's weak, you are less likely to become a supportive spouse, a supportive parent. And I mean, these no reason to sugarcoat stuff. This is what's happening right now. These are realities. This stuff is real. Like, to keep denying these truths, it just damages people even more, and it's not good. That's why mental health is just so up there right now. And it doesn't help that the people recruited to be in movies and to be in television are like super messed up in the head. Music, sports, I mean, you've got MLB. Not only does MLB celebrate steroid users, domestic abusers, and sexual degenerates, MLB also celebrates the mentally ill, poor genes, and the suicidal. Um, and so, I mean, don't you wonder where all the healthy people are? Because there are healthy people out there, right? Like, um, there's healthy people out there, but you wouldn't realize it because the people that are front and center, or at least pushed front and center, have health issues, or they had cancer, or they have some other sickness, they have poor genes. And so I feel like that's also wearing on people. So we need to start presenting and celebrating healthiness again. I mean, again, I've watched a lot of TV and I've streamed a lot of stuff too, because I've acquired streaming services, and so um, I don't want to promote any of them, but like the first streaming service that I got was specifically so I could watch The Fall. And then I realized, hey man, I can watch from start to finish all these other shows that I didn't get to watch completely because I was going through life milestones, right? And so that first service did, I got my money's worth, but it was also way cheaper back then. And I say back then like if it was a decade ago, but it was just a few years ago. And then I acquired another streaming service, which was outstanding because unlimited DVR capacity. And so it helped when I was watching like the sports talk shows, because there were times when a game did coincide and I was like, okay, such and such is playing and I want to watch. And so I would catch up on the sports talk shows later on. And so I'm sorry, I went off on another tangent. Okay, so I watched Schitt's Creek, which I think is hilarious. It's funny. It's hilarious. And then they went global homo. And I don't understand what this need with pushing forward global homo is, but it, look, I pointed out, I tweeted about this. Dan Levy, which one's the dad? So there's the Levys. Oh, and the daughter's in it too. So it's the father, the son, and the daughter. And all three of them are hilarious. The son makes an appearance in my favorite Degrassi episodes, or among my favorite Degrassi episodes. He's funny. He's very funny, but I just don't understand this need to like force global homo down people's throats. But okay, so I actually haven't watched the last season of Schitt's Creek. Hopefully I'll get to it soon. But Annie, okay, her real name is Annie, and she plays Alexis on Schitt's Creek. She does her role extremely well. She's funny too. And she looks the part. I mean, she's beautiful. And so there's an interview out there right now. It's on Twitter. And she revealed that she also suffers from mental health issues. So, I mean, everybody has a mental health issue in Hollywood, apparently. And, it's a good thing everybody's turning off their TV sets and not movies too often and streaming less, because we don't need to be influenced by people with. Okay, so let me go over the Bill of Rights themselves. The First Amendment is your religious and political freedom. Congress must not interfere with freedom of religion, speech, or press, assembly, and petition. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Now, we know that the government is breaking the First Amendment on basically every single point. Some people are allowed to assemble and they don't assemble peacefully, while others do assemble peacefully and they are being arrested and hunting down as we speak, or as I speak and you listen. The freedom of the press, let's be honest, they're basically the fourth branch of the government at this point. So, I'm not going to defend them. Do we need to shut down all the newspapers? Obviously not. But we need to figure out, their circulation's down, right? Everyone's going digital because people are dropping their paper subscriptions at this point. Freedom of religion got struck down in 1962 and 1963 when they started to remove Bible study and prayer from public schools. Assembly and to petition. Okay, Amendment 2, the right to bear arms. The people may bear arms, period. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. I don't know when the first gun license permit came to be or who pushed it forward, but it's definitely going to be interesting to find out who it was, where it happened, and why they felt the need to push that forward. This doesn't say anything about you can't conceal and carry. This doesn't say anything about background checks. This doesn't say anything about you have to get licensed. This says the people may bear arms. The militia, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So obviously your Second Amendment right is being infringed on a daily basis. The Third Amendment, quartering of troops. Soldiers may not be arbitrarily quartered on the people. No soldier shall, in time of peace, be quartered at any house without the consent of the owner, nor in time of war, but in a manner to be prescribed by law. So that's a little iffy right there. Again, we got to keep an eye on this. I don't know, man. I have a bad feeling. We don't know what's coming down the pipe. Amendment 4, searches and seizures. Unreasonable searches are forbidden. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. So it's 2021. We're very much into digital communications. Persons, houses, papers, and effects. So in 2021, I think we can add social media data, email. What else do you guys have out there? Your listening devices, your smart assistants, your smart appliances are gathering data on you guys. The Bill of Rights says that stuff cannot be searched, and seized. Yet, every day, the Fourth Amendment or our rights are being infringed upon, and we're letting them do it. Okay, the Fifth Amendment, right to life, liberty, and property. The individual is guaranteed certain rights when on trial, and the right to life, liberty, and property. No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia, when in actual service, in time of war or public danger. Nor shall any person be subject for the same offense twice put in jeopardy of life or limb. Nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. That's a hefty one, right? But again, this wasn't meant like in MLB. The union protects the steroid users, the domestic suspensions, the sexual degenerates, instead of protecting the guys who just want to play in an MLB uniform. So this amendment wasn't meant to protect your drug dealers, your rapists, your murderers. What this specifically was targeting was protecting Americans against the government. So the FBI, the CIA, the NSA, whomever comes knocking at your door, that's who this is supposed, that's who this protects you against. It protects you. Like, I don't have an opinion on Julian Assange. I have more opinion on Snowden. Cassandra Fairbanks is the person on Julian Assange. So I would defer to her. But I'm pretty sure what's happening to Julian Assange is anti-Fifth Amendment. I'm pretty sure he's being denied life, liberty, and property right now. Regardless of your opinion. With Snowden, I have more of an opinion on him because I felt like, so Snowden has Marxist tendencies, right? But he definitely helped get the ball rolling in evidence against the Barack Obama administration and specifically Barack Obama. Without Snowden, there are things that we wouldn't have been able to keep pushing forward. He gave us the evidence that we needed. And so for me, I just have a different opinion on Snowden for that reason. I mean, Snowden married his girlfriend, and I believe she's pregnant. Whether she's been born yet or not, I don't know. But Snowden is definitely in a different situation than Assange, and but Snowden's getting by, so I'm not sure if Snowden is exactly being denied life, liberty, and property, but I think Assange is. And again, I don't have a super opinion on that. Cassandra Fairbanks is someone that I defer to on the Assange topic. And I do believe that Cassandra Fairbanks is an intelligent woman, so I think she's level-headed on the Assange topic. Sixth Amendment, protection in criminal trials. An accused person has important rights. In all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury of the state and district wherein the crime shall be committed, which district shall have been previously ascertained by law, and to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation, to be confronted with the witnesses against him, to have compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in his favor and to have the assistance of counsel for his defense. So I think this is the, if you can't afford a lawyer, one will be assigned to you. The speedy trial is important. Again, the colonists who rebelled against Great Britain and the crown were being tossed in jail and left there to basically rot. And so again, this amendment comes from the specific experience of the colonists. It's, I mean, we look at things through the lenses of 2021. And you're using the wrong lenses. You have to look at this stuff in the context of the time when it was happening. The amendments are, the first 10 anyway, are specifically based on the experiences that the colonists were having. And they wanted to prevent this stuff to happening again. So they were protecting their fellow citizens against, again, government abuses. The government is the enemy, not each other. Okay, Seventh Amendment, suits at common law. The rules of common law are recognized in suits at common law where the value in controversy shall exceed $20. The right of trial by jury shall be preserved, and no fact tried by a jury shall otherwise re-examined in any court of the United States than according to the rules of the common law. Now, I don't remember what common law is, but again, it's something specific to the times of 1769, 1773, 1775, 1776. 1774 is another one. Amendment 8, bail and punishments. Excessive fines and unusual punishments are forbidden. Excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted. And these are the times when people were getting tarred and feathered, right? I'm assuming the tar was hot, so it burned and it hurt. But again, the colonists who rebelled against Great Britain and the crown were being tossed in jail, basically left to like rot. And the colonists, these great men, your James Madison, Thomas Jefferson, Ben Franklin, George Washington, sought to it that it wouldn't happen again. Even though it's happening right now, right? Those 400 people being hunted down for being at the Capitol on January 6th. Okay, Amendment 9, concerning rights not enumerated. The people retain rights not here enumerated. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. So this is a situation where, oh, it's not in the fine print, therefore, haha, you don't get it. Good for them for adding it, right? Because these lawyerly people out there are quick to set precedents and use stuff like this against people. So brilliant men added this in there to protect American citizens. And finally, Amendment 10, powers reserved to the states and to the people. Powers not delegated to the federal government are reserved to the states and the people. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively. People. And we know that the amendment gets squashed daily basis. And this is for decades, right? This has been happening for decades. And it's just such a mess that, I mean, you've got to roll stuff back in order to even allow the 10th Amendment to do its job. So again, my purpose with these streams, especially this, is to remind you guys where you come from, your legacies, why we have the Bill of Rights, why we have Independence Day, why we have the Declaration of Independence, why, how all these things took shape. And I just hope that you gain an appreciation for it, even though you weren't taught this in school. Do it on yourself. Do it by yourself. Be a self-starter. Be curious. Read, learn, discuss. Just I'm not going to say keep an open mind. You don't have to keep an open mind. This is your country's founding documents. This isn't about having an open mind. This is understanding what America is. So tomorrow, I'm not sure the topic that I'm going to cover, but it will be in line with this week's theme of leading up to Independence Day 2021. I got a little distracted with this Trevor Bauer stuff. And the only reason why it's relevant is because it's just one more thing in several things that's going on in MLB that's more than just a trend. It's like culture. So thank you to anybody who watches this stream after the fact, anybody who came into the stream. I appreciate it. I will see you back here tomorrow, 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and discussing another topic related to Independence Day. Possibly, if I get through like the John Locke, Thomas Paine stuff, Thomas Jefferson also wrote some stuff. Maybe I'll find some James Madison stuff. But it's just about sharing at this point. So hope everybody has a wonderful Thursday. I will see you back here tomorrow. Thank you.